Well, hello, Facebook family and friends. I hope you all had a safe and happy new year. It's a new year to look at, 2020. My pastor says we all have 2020 vision this year. May we see clearly what God wants us to do with our lives. Let nothing interfere with that. So um, I'm going to start off with chapter 8, Getting Clean, my book, Healing the Wounded Child Within. We finished it off 2 weeks ago with hitting bottom. We hit bottom and then we start our journey into recovery. Hello, Angie. We hit the bottom, whatever your bottom is, it is. For everybody, it's different. It's not one bottom for everybody, but it's hopefully the bottom that gets you to that point of desperation that you'll start your recovery. So once we hit bottom, once we enter recovery, remember that um, our drugs or our alcohol or our addictions, whatever they might be, they're not the problem. They're just a symptom. And they're symptom to a much deeper and underlying issue, which is generally stems from somewhere in our childhood or adolescence, some form of trauma. And until we address those, we really are not going to be able to get clean and sober and become recovered because those issues will keep coming up. Unfortunately, fortunately, God created us in a way that we have a little thing called the amygdala in the center of our brain, and it's the filing cabinet of our memories of our life. A lot of people repress their memories of their childhood for years, but eventually they'll realize something's not right in their life and they start journeying with a mentor, a coach, a therapist, whatever that might be, and they start realizing some things happen in their life that they've been repressing for many, many years. So the first thing we need to do, well, the thing we need to do to fully recover is address whatever those symptoms might be or whatever those issues might be, I should say, because the addiction is a symptom. We don't want to just put a band aid on the symptom. We want to address the symptom. We want to address the issue so that we can heal the symptom fully. But in order to do that, the first thing we have to do is we have to get clean and sober. We have to get clean and sober because until we can, we're not going to be able to be truthful with ourselves because the drugs, the alcohol, the addiction will has so much power over us that it won't allow us to speak the truth. Um, we got to get to a point in our life where we can no longer evade or deny the truth of what's really going on in our life, what's really happened, until they look deep into our lives and our behaviors and our actions. To deal with what I had going on, the way I was dealing with what I had going on was with the drugs and the alcohol and the success and the money and all those outside things. Um, it just I would use those and my successes. Well, it doesn't really care. I don't really care what you think about me. Look how successful I am. But the truth is, underneath it, I was. So what I had to do, and what a lot of people believe, strongly believe, and I believe, is that you have to remove that addiction. You have to resolve that addiction. Now, does that mean you can't start your journey until you've resolved that addiction? No, I think for me, I got in treatment and I wasn't drinking or using while I was in treatment. I couldn't, or I'd be kicked out. And I'd been seeing a therapist for close to a year by the time I got into the treatment facility. But as long as you're drinking or using or gambling or pornography or whatever it is, that's going to cloud your mind from the truth. You're going to be under that influence all the time, and you're not going to be able to see clearly. Even when it come down to my marriage, it was still on the line. Even I had the affair in 2004. It wasn't until 2006 that I got in recovery. And my wife and I were back together in therapy, but it was still um, that not only was my marriage online, but my life was on the line if I didn't quit drinking, if I didn't do something to fix myself. So I had to first of all quit. Because while I was still drinking and using, I had tried to work on my abuse. I tried several times when I was still drinking and using, several times, but to no avail. I mean, it went right back to, well, what happened to me happened to you. You'd be drinking this way too, or you would be saying the same thing. Um, it just wasn't working, and I had various therapists, even at the same psychiatrists. They asked me how much I drank alcohol or used drugs, and I lied through my teeth to them. It's not just on occasion, nothing big, I might have a drink or two on the weekend, and that was it. And I couldn't even be truthful with my therapist or psychiatrist. Um, I mean, using drugs recreationally is still using drugs. It's a mind altering substance. And I didn't know how to use anything recreational. I didn't know how to do anything recreational. It was always a competition for me. Um, so it's that drinking, that was the first thing I had to look at, is that I got to quit denying that I have a drinking problem. Hi, Linda. How are you? Good to see you. And that wasn't easy to do. Um, and one of the truth being that I would tell my psychiatrist or my psychologist, my therapist, who thank God for them. I tell them countless times that I'm not, I don't have a problem. You know, and there were several times that I was lying through my teeth because I was high when I was talking to them. So the biggest problem that I had was not having a problem. That was my big problem, is I didn't have a problem, which was a big lie. So it was coming to realize and coming to facing the truth that I had a problem. Because as long as we're using or drinking or whatever we're doing, we're going to remain in a delusional state of mind. Um, Delusional state of mind about what was causing me the pain, because you guys were causing me the pain. Um, and it wasn't my fault. Nothing was ever my fault. It was everybody else's fault, and it was you're the ones that were causing me the pain. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be this way. And that was just a lie. But we're survivors, especially, or anybody with these underlying issues. The best thing the thing they're the best at is blaming everybody else for their problems. All right. If you wouldn't have done this, if you wouldn't have said this, or, she made me do it, or he made me do it. It's like there ain't no human being that has a power in this world to make you do anything. We all have choices. But when you only have one choice, if you only know of one choice, which I did for many years, then your only choice is to drink and blame other people for your problems, you know? Because we couldn't be wrong, because if we were wrong, or if I was wrong, God forbid what my stepfather or mother would find out. So it was all being hid by the alcohol. When in the reality of it was this: is how could I be wrong? I mean, when you looked at my life, I had a beautiful wife. I have a beautiful wife and family. I have a nice house, nice home. I drove expensive cars. She drove an expensive car. I did. I had $1 million business, um, and I showed up to work every single day. So how could I have a problem? How could I be an alcoholic? In our entire marriage, my wife had only called me an alcoholic one time, and that's when I left. You know, that's when I ended up leaving. When she called me that alcoholic, I said, I'm out of here. But thank God she took me back. So, we see ourselves in a light that nobody else sees us. Um, we see ourselves as being, it's almost a narcissistic pattern. I'm not narcissistic, but it's almost that pattern where um, I can't be wrong. I'm always right. I'm successful. Look at all I've got. And again, that was that was all under the delusion of alcohol and drugs. Now, when I say that, for 38 years I was drinking and using. So was I high every single day? No, I wasn't. I wasn't. But I was under the influence every single day, because even though I wasn't drinking, I'd put so much of it in my system over the years, is that it had control over me. It had control over my thinking, had control over my mind, had control over my actions. And they never knew when that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde syndrome was going to show up. So it come down to the total abstinence of alcohol and drugs. Because until that happened, I wasn't going to be able to look at anything else. I mean, after all, I'd invested so much time in maintaining this image of the ultimate man, successful, sufficient, and self-sufficient and strong, right? But again, if you peel back the veil, that was all a facade. There's nothing wrong with those things. Being successful, self-sufficient to an extreme. I mean, God has a part in everything that we do. He's the reason why we're successful. And being strong. I mean, so to some extent, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're using it to mask and to run your life in a way that's destroying your life and hurting those around you, and you don't even see that it's hurting you, we've got a problem. Okay. Occasionally, a friend might say, Randy, you think you might have a drinking problem? And right away, I would say, no. Oh, man, look at the victim card came out real easily. What happened to you what happened to me had happened to you. You'd be drinking this way too, and you'd be this pissed off as well. You know, the deal is that my anger wasn't stemming from something that somebody was doing to me today. My anger stemmed from what happened to me as a child, because I was never allowed to talk about how I felt about my anger. I had to squash it. I was told, as a matter of fact, I was told that I couldn't even be angry. You have no right to be angry, Randy. So it was always anger from my past that was being spit onto everybody around me. Everybody else paid for what had happened to me as a child, and that wasn't fair. But I didn't see it at the time because alcohol and drugs and my success put me in such a place where I didn't have a problem. It was everybody else's problem. Um, when I would come up with that, hey, what happened to you happened to me. Nobody ever pushed me beyond that point. And the thing about me is I should have, um, but I never had any legal consequences. Kathy didn't leave me. She never told me either, get help or I'm gonna move out. I'm sure she probably would have if I would have kept going the way I was. I didn't have no nudge from the judge. It was a purely God intervention that got me to get into recovery. Nobody, it's like to say, no human power can do this. So the whole thing with recovery is this: the first thing we got to do is we got to realize that we have a problem, and you got to get really honest about the problem, and that's where step one, which we came to believe that we admit we're powerless, or I can't remember. Here I go, I keep forgetting the steps, but we're uh, powerless over our addictions. All right. And we are. We don't have no power over them. We can't. No matter how hard I fought to try to quit drinking, I couldn't quit drinking. Like I think it's in Romans 7. Paul says, why do I do the things that I hate to do, and don't do the things that I want to do? We know what's wrong. We know what we got to do, but we just can't seem to do them. So a lot of it has to do with that being our default button because we haven't looked at these underlying issues. So the very first step for us to get um, yeah, you're right. We repeat what we don't repair, or we spill the blood of our injuries onto others if we don't heal them. And that's exactly what we do. It's and it's not fair. So the whole journey of recovery starts very first off um, with not drinking or using or whatever your addiction is. It's a must. It's an absolute must. You've got to quit. You've got to have a good mentor. You got to have a good coach. You got to have a good sponsor, a good therapist. Because here's the reality that you need to understand, and this will come as you start working the steps. And everybody should do the steps. You don't have to be an alcoholic or an addict to do the steps. Everybody can do the steps, right? Is that when you work these steps, you have a good sponsor. You're going to look at some stuff in your life that you never want to look at, right? What I had to realize is that things that happened to me in my life that we want to blame God for, they're not God's fault. God gives us free man, right? So it's not my wife's fault. It's not my business, my employee's fault. It's not his fault. It's not her fault. I'm responsible for any and all consequences that follow as a result of my piss poor behavior. Period. God's not punishing us for it. He gives us free will. We have a thing called the law of the land that we have to live by as well. And so when we do things, we have consequences, good or bad. So on the journey of recovery, we're going to look at all this stuff, and you're going to realize that, man, I was a jerk. Here I am blaming this on everybody else. Um, and I can't blame it on everybody else. My actions caused it, right? So we start seeing how the alcohol had made us, or the drugs or whatever it is, turn us into a person that we're not God intended. And then we got to start looking at why. And again, until we quit drinking or using, actually, you can be going to treatment, and this journey can all start. And that's where it gets hard, and that's why it's really important. That's why it's really, really important to have a good mentor, sponsor, or therapist working with you, because as you start this journey, you start diving into some of this stuff, and you start opening up your life. You don't have that that cessation of drugs, alcohol, pornography, sex, whatever it was that made you feel good about. You don't have that anymore. You're raw to the world. You're raw to everything, because all those issues that happened in your life, they didn't just go away. They can't. I wish they could. Um, for the Christians, the amygdala is a filing cabinet of the brain. God created it. That's where we store all of our emotions, and how good or bad. But on the flip side of that, the one thing that the devil knows is he knows our past, and he knows about that amygdala. So he'll dive into that at a time that you least suspect it, and start pulling up things from your past, and which will cause you to think about shame or something you did in the past, and bring up this awful feeling of shame. And if you don't have somebody that you're walking with when those moments happen, that's when you're going to turn to your default button, the drugs or the alcohol. And believe me when I say this, okay, because it's happened, and it happened to a kid I was working with. 3 months clean, and he got triggered. He turned to drugs and alcohol, and about a year and a half later, he just couldn't get it. I worked with him. He'd been sexually abused. He got a beautiful family, and a year and a half later, he hung himself. This isn't something you want to mess around with. It's not a one and out. It's not, I'm going to go to treatment. I went into treatment thinking, oh, I'm going to learn how to drink like a gentleman. No, I learned how to not drink. I learned how to not drink and have fun. So number one, you have to get rid of the alcohol or whatever addiction it is in order to really dive into the underlying issues. And in doing that, believe me, you cannot do it by yourself. One. Two, the Bible even tells us we can't do it by ourselves. And three, you need to do this journey. And I'm going to say this, especially if there's any kind of abuse, especially if you're a man, and even women as well, okay? You need to make sure you're walking this journey with somebody that has pretty much walked in your shoes. There's a lot of people out there that think they can help people, especially men that have been sexually abused, right? And they can't. I was real fortunate. My sponsor and all my accountability partners in AA, they knew my life. They knew what happened to me, and they were all man enough, and I say that, respectfully, to tell me, Randy, we can't help you with your abuse issues. We'll help you with your drinking and all other aspects, but you need to get the right help. That is what you want in a sponsor or a mentor or even a therapist. You want somebody that can walk with you through that pain and that shame. Because there was only one time in my early recovery that I walked into Betty Ford. I was doing my fourth and fifth step, and I was facilitating a meeting, and the shame was raging inside of me. And all I had to do was sit on a stage and introduce speakers. I didn't have to do a whole lot. Just introduce a couple speakers. The shame was so heavy on me, I swore all the patients could smell it and see it as though it was a suit of shame on my back. And all I could do is sit up there and say, God, please, just help me get through this 30 minutes. Please, God, help me get through it. Help me get through it. Help me get through it. And when I left there, the shame was so bad, I was walking out. And in one ear, I heard this, Randy, a little bit of cocaine and a couple of drinks will wipe this shame out and this feeling out. You'll be good. You won't feel it no more. But then in the same breath, I heard, yeah, but if you do that, you're going to die. So I had to just walk through it. I had to feel it. I had to talk. I mean, I was going down Washington Street here in Palm Desert, and I went by the 19th hole. My right hand was pulling me into the 19th hole. My left hand was fighting the other way, and God was keeping me going straight. It was that bad. So there's a lot of things that are going to come up that you need to walk through it with people that have been there, people that can just be there and listen to you and help you. And if you do all these things in the right order, you don't have to do them perfectly. Then your life will slowly start getting better. But when it comes time to get clean and sober, put away the alcohol and the drugs. Get in a program if you have to. Go to meetings. Get into a good church, a good Christ-centered. There's Celebrate Recovery, Christ-centered recovery program. Get into a good Bible reading church, right? Our church, Destiny, is a phenomenal church. We look at everybody as equal. Get a good mentor, a sponsor that has pretty much walked in your shoes, right? That can really understand what you're going through. That's not going to pat you on the back and co-sign your BS when it's going to tell you the hard truths. These are all things that are important. And then you can slowly start, as you start uncovering this stuff, right? You can start healing it. And it's not a one, like I said, it's not a one or not. It's going to be a lifetime journey. Okay. I'm going to read this one. There's an ongoing debate about whether or not the propensity of alcoholism is genetic, and if so, to what extent genetics affect behavior. There's one study out that says that addiction is 50% environment and 50% genetics. The environment that you grow up in such as mine, very abusive. Mine was actually a combination, very abusive environment and very alcoholic environment. A lot of drinking went on. So that's an environment that's going to lead to the possibility of drinking. And there's other ones where you grow up and everybody drinks all the time, and you just happen to be that one person that when you drink, there's problems. Nobody else has no problems, but you're the one that has the problems. That's the genetic part. But according to National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, the picture is mixed. Here's what it says. Many specific studies, including research conducted among twins and children of alcoholics, have shown that genetic factors influence alcoholism. These findings show that children of alcoholics are about 4 times more likely than the general population, like 4 times more likely than the general population to develop alcohol problems. Children of alcoholics also have a higher risk for many other behavioral and emotional problems. But alcoholism is not determined only by the genes you inherit. So it's not determined only by the genes that we all inherit. So there's other factors that go into it. And I'll say from my view, and from the way I'm seeing things now, from the Christian perspective, it's an absolute spirit. It's an evil demon spirit that gets in you, and it gets a hold of you, and I mean, it changes the person that you are, not in a good way whatsoever. So that's about it for this week on getting clean and sober. Oh, wait a minute. There's more on this one. I'm sorry, but alcoholism is not determined by the genes you inherit from your parents. In fact, more than half of all children of alcoholics do not become alcoholic. Research shows that many factors influence your risk of developing alcoholism. Some factors raise the risk while others lower it. Okay, so there's the extension of that. I'm sorry, I missed it. So that's about it for this week. Next week we'll continue on getting clean. We'll do part 2. Remember my life coaching. Visit my life coaching page, changeyourlifestorynow.com, changeyourlifestorynow.com. We work on, Kathy and I do marriages. We're SYMBIS certified. So this SYMBIS report, we're finding out, we've done it on 3 of our couples right now, is a pretty phenomenal and accurate report. It really gives you some guidance to walk into your marriage with. It doesn't tell you should or shouldn't get married. It just really gives you some insight to each other, and it's pretty eye-opening. We're really pleased with it. So are the couples that are doing it. So we do marriage, we do addictions, abuse, of course, inner healing, and spiritual work for my life coaching. So, hey, just go to the life coaching page, changeyourlifestorynow.com, and fill out the contact form. Let me know what you want. And then I can do hourly rate stuff. And then we also got different packages, 3 months, 6 month, and 12-month packages that we can work with you on. That just breaks it down a little bit cheaper on per session. So, we all got hurts, hangups, and habits. So, don't hesitate. It's your life. You deserve to have a good life. So, and we'll help you get that. We'll help you get that life, get that marriage, whatever it is that you need. We can help you get there. My book, Healing the Wounded Child Within, on Amazon. It's on paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. Visit the Courageous Healers website, courageoushealers.org, courageoushealers.org. You can make a one-time donation or be a monthly contributor. Just visit our website and click on the Donate tab. Courageous Healers Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization. All contributions are tax deductible. 100% of whatever proceeds come into Courageous Healers Foundation stays in Courageous Healers Foundation. It just goes to help develop programs, support workshops, support groups, so on and so forth. So it's all there. And if you donate $60 or more, I'll send you a signed copy of my book, Healing the Wounded Child Within, and a copy of my 30-day devotional to wholeness. That's a $40 value. Last thing is we're having we have a workshop series coming up. The workshop series is called Unmasking Yourself. The first one will be on March 14th. It'll be personal communication. The second one will be Journey to You. The personal communication one works good for all communication. Specifically, not specific, but in your marriage, with your children, with your fellow employees, with friends. It's just a better way to communicate. Teaches you, some really good ways of communication that we weren't taught how to as kids. So that's going to be a good one on March 14th. There's a flyer on my website, courageoushealers.org. Just click on the workshops and it's at the bottom of the page there. June 13th is Journey to You. That's going to be a pretty intensive one. It's going to go into why you are the way you are, the generations that have, so to speak, generation curse that's been handed down from generation to generation. It's going to explore some of those behaviors that have been handed down, explore ways to recognize the behaviors, both good and bad, and provide some tools to remove and replace the bad behaviors. Okay. And then we got Secrets and Silence on September 12th and December 5th, right before Thanksgiving, or right before Christmas, is forgiveness. And that will be a really eye-opening, really powerful workshop as well. I just did a brief one of those. I did a 30-minute presentation at our Celebrate Recovery Friday before, and it really opened some people's eyes about what forgiveness is and what it's not. So just keep checking back for updates often. So you can visit my website, courageoushealers.org. I'm gonna put it up here right now. Thank you, Linda. So there's a link to the workshops right there. Okay. So I'll see you next week. Same time, same channel. Remember, if nobody tells you they love you today, Randy does, but more importantly, God does. Everybody be blessed and have a great week. Thanks for checking in with me. I really appreciate it, guys. Have a great week. Bye-bye. Hey, Robin, got to go. You can watch this from the beginning if you like. All right. Bye.